Good morning, it's Wayne Berry here, and I also have Harry McIntosh with me in another location here. Good morning to you, Harry. How are you?
Hi Wayne, I'm well. Thanks for the invite.
Good to have you on this morning. Now, welcome to everyone joining us. We have people joining us from various parts of the world this morning. In Australia, East Coast, it is 8 a.m. Western Australia at 6 a.m. early over there, 7:30 a.m. in Central Time, Adelaide. New Zealand, our friends across the Tasman, it's 10 a.m. Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Hong Kong, China, 6 a.m. early up there. We have some people joining us again in London, in the United Kingdom, where it is Sunday afternoon, and 11 p.m. or Sunday evening, I should say. In Los Angeles, in the USA. West Coast USA, it is 3 p.m. on Sunday. Chicago, 5 p.m. New York and Orlando, Florida, 6 p.m. So welcome to everyone joining us this morning. Harry, just to explain, Harry is our senior sales coaching director, and Harry is another location right now and joining us through the magic of Google. And so much of our business these days is done via the internet, which is a great thing. So Harry, I thought we'd get straight down to questions. We had great response from last time. We had many people view the session afterwards who were not able to make it live as well, and we've had many more questions come in during this last 2-day period. We've taken a break, so I thought we might begin with a question from Jerry Curry in New Zealand. And Jerry says here, our big question at present, and he says that we're wholesale salespeople, is when getting involved with the farmer, so they're selling to the agricultural industry, the end user is for equipment. How do we change our approach so it's more effective? He says here, I've had some feedback that if we're not careful, we can be perceived as pushing too hard, and end users hate this because the end user is used to dealing with farm machinery dealers of whom buying machinery is their job. He goes in for the kill, so to speak, far too hard. Bearing in mind that our target end user may only ever buy one new bale feeder in his entire life, this is a major decision for him, and he needs advice in space and not excess pressure. This, I think, again, is a case, Harry, of consultative selling being so important. What are your thoughts on that?
Wayne, I absolutely agree with you. I see this as being a very key type sale because it is a one-off sale which is going to then grow into ongoing business. And the ongoing business is going to be the support and maintenance of a very important piece of equipment on the farm. So it's going to be very dependent on the trust and rapport aspect of how the salesperson deals with the prospect at the start. Now, you and I and our other people that we work with talk about that as becoming the doctor of sales. It's absolutely essential that you understand the prospect right from the start, that the prospect is comfortable with you, and that they see you as understanding their business and the critical nature of what it is. If we're thinking about what Jerry says about the bale feeder and being one, that's a fairly massive investment of something. That's pretty critical. That's almost as critical as the decision we make for the 3 most expensive purchases we ever have in our life. One is our house, 2 is our car, and probably the most expensive thing we ever do is we get married. And for what Jerry's saying, the bale feeder is a very critical purchase for somebody who lives on a farm. Now, the salesperson needs to trust and respect the person who's making that decision and deal with them appropriately. And that means be the doctor of sales. Understand the issues that person has, understand what the ongoing support requirements are, know about the relationship you're developing, as I mentioned at the start. But the other key thing is they also need to understand the personality type of the person they're selling to. If they sell based on their own style, that may clash with the style of the person they're selling to. So I've sort of touched on a few things in there, Wayne. Does that make sense?
Well, look, it does, Harry, and I think this again is a case of recognising that today we need to be truly consultative in our approach in selling. It's all about being at least a generation 4 sales professional. And just to quickly explain, generation 1, 2, and 3 adds very little value to the relationship because it doesn't focus on relationship. And very quickly, generation 1, 2, and 3 is the quote giver, the product flogger, and the order taker. They tend to be rather reactive, and probably this salesperson is coming from a perspective of having had an inquiry, and all of the other salespeople are coming from that space as well. And this is where we need to set ourselves apart from our competitors by being a Generation 4 sales professional, and that is being a true problem solver. And this is where it is so important that when we sit down with somebody, we're not just selling. We sit down and we are truly consultative. We ask questions, we build rapport, we build trust. And of course, as we know and as we teach, one of the highest needs that all human beings have is the need to be understood. And of course, the way you show somebody that you truly understand their situation is by asking questions. And we call these diagnosis questions. We talk about truly consultative salespeople being like a doctor of sales, whereby they diagnose the client's true need and ask questions, not just a random collection of questions. We teach a certain sequence of diagnosis questions which not only uncovers their logical needs, that is what we call their left brain logical needs, but also their psychological needs, their right brain more emotional needs. And this, again, is one of these cases where the emotional need is very much for security, as well as believing they're getting the best possible deal, yes, but it needs to be around feeling secure in making that decision, and that can only happen if you're truly consultative. If you're not consultative, if you come off just as any other salesperson would be, and you're a product flogger, that is, you're focusing just on the product and the features and maybe talking about the benefits of the product, or you're quoting on price, then you're only being reactive, and then it will come down to price and only price. It's all about building the relationship and the trust and the rapport. And of course, it is the ongoing relationship that's going to be very important to the farmer as well. I often say that in a truly consultative approach, you get something with that salesperson who is a true Generation 4 sales professional that you can't get anywhere else, and that is them. That's the ability to pick up the phone day or night, 7 days a week, and call that person and get that support, get that help. You know, often that is all it takes to swing the person across to you, is if you're truly consultative and you show how much you really care. So yeah, it's all about that, and also about the behavioral styles, Harry, as well. Yes, recognizing that when you're selling to farmers, I mean, they could be, in yesteryear they might have been one particular behavioral style, but these days, with farming being much more a business and many more business people in farming, we need to recognize there are different behavioral styles, psychological types if you wish, who are farmers and indeed all business people, and recognizing that if we first discover what the style of the person is, and then we can adapt our behavior so we're much more aligned to that style of communication. The golden rule of selling says sell unto others as you would have them sell unto you. Now the platinum rule of selling, something we teach, is going that one step further. It's all about sell unto others as they would have you sell unto them. In other words, be on their wavelength. And when we get onto somebody's wavelength, they feel comfortable. The trust level goes up, and they're much more attuned and really listen much more to you. So it's recognizing, as we teach, the four basic behavioral styles, being the thinker, that is a detailed oriented person, very slow paced; the director, who's at the other end of the scale, fast paced, bottom line, don't want all the detail, just want the bottom line. The socializer, which again is fast-paced but more relationship-oriented. They like fast-paced, they like the relationship to be built with them. And then at the other end there is the slow-paced and relationship-oriented person. We call that person the relator, and to them, you must go slow, you must not in any way appear to be pushy or pressure, and relationship, it's all about relationship with them. So look, I think that the answer to the question really is be much more consultative, recognize that you need to be truly consultative, recognize that you need to diagnose the needs and ask questions that uncover psychological needs as well as logical needs, and you need to be on the same wavelength as the person by recognizing their behavioral style. And the good thing about that is those are all skills and strategies, and the good thing about all skills and strategies is that they can be learned. However, many of those things do not come intuitively, so waiting around and hoping that suddenly you'll understand how to do all this stuff is like saying, well, I think I'll be an accountant or a lawyer lawyer or a brain surgeon and expecting it to come naturally. It just doesn't come naturally. Today's professional salesperson recognizes that they have to develop the skills on purpose, deliberately. Selling is not an intuitive process. Well, to some extent it is, but if we just follow intuition, it can sometimes lead to disaster, as we would know in any area of our life. So I hope that answers the question for Jerry. Jerry, just while I look for the next question, Harry, any extra comments to add there?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. The only point I would make on that one is that we've actually moved from the old model of selling to the new model of selling, where it sounds as if the person that's working for Jerry at this stage might have some skills that have been developed a long while ago, where it was all about closing the sale, push, 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 push and close the sale, where the whole new model of selling that we teach is about the trust and relationship aspect, and the close will come naturally because people want you to actually help them go forward. So it's just recognizing that there's a change in the cycle, that, you know, the biggest amount of time is spent now in developing the relationship, because that helps you bring the business to a head later on easily.
Indeed, you know, the way that we used to sell years ago is no longer working today. Well, it is, but not as efficiently as possibly it should. This is where professional salespeople decide to develop the skills on purpose and become really good at it. I've got another question here. This one is coming from Western Australia, and it's coming from an old friend, a top-line graduate, somebody who's been on our program for quite some time, it is Andy Bryden of Northam in Western Australia. Andy writes here, he says, I've got two questions. Why is it that customers think that it's in their own best interest to tell a salesperson as little as possible, especially about their budget, and still expect the salesperson to be able to solve their problem? It's like going to the doctor and saying, I've got a really bad pain, but I'm not going to tell you where it is. You'll have to work it out for yourself. What would you say is the best way to set the customer at ease and get them to open up? Now that's Andy's first question. And look, I think this again is being a true consultative salesperson, and I'll come to you in a moment, Harry, for a comment, but this is about setting the client at ease at the beginning, because the major fear that any prospect has when they encounter a salesperson, and it's natural, it's understandable that they might fear this, is that they're going to be sold. And as you know, Harry, we teach what we call a question softener to get the client to feel more at ease, more relaxed, and this is what Andy's asking, before we in fact get into the sales process. And here are the words. It says, I'm not going to try and sell you anything right now. All I'd like to do is ask you a few questions so I understand your situation and your needs, and then if I feel that I can make a recommendation to help you, would it then be okay if I make some recommendations? Now, those words are important, and you may even want to play this recording again. Write these words down, because the words are important. If you change the words, you change the meaning. You change the meaning, you change the effectiveness. Now, let's just examine the words. I'm not going to try and sell you anything right now. When you say that, that has to be absolutely 100% true. Now, I get some salespeople who say to me, hey, that's crazy. You know, I do want to sell them something. Yeah, but the fact is, right now, I'm not going to try and sell you anything right now. That's got to be absolutely true. It's okay if you seek permission later on to move into a sales mode where, in fact, you're making a presentation. But once you say, I'm not going to try and sell you anything right now, or I'm not going to sell you anything right now, if you watch the prospect, very often we'll see a physical shift in their demeanor. You'll see their shoulders change, they'll lean back, they'll be more relaxed, and now they're more willing to listen and share their ideas. So I'm not going to try and sell you anything right now. All I'd like to do is ask you a few questions so I understand your situation and your needs, and once I do, is it then okay if I make some recommendations? And very often, yeah, as I say, you'll see people, there's a physical shift in their body language as they relax. And most people, I've never encountered anyone who said no, most people will simply say, sure, what would you like to know? You'll also sometimes see them become more friendly. They'll say, oh, by the way, would you like a cup of coffee? And now you really know they're relaxed. You teach this, I know a lot, Harry, as you work with salespeople that you coach around the country and internationally. Any thoughts on that?
Wayne, you've absolutely covered it perfectly. That's exactly the discussion I have with people, that we've actually witnessed that relaxing thing happening. When people have been nervous and tense, I've had a few chats with people that have been just about to go in on a call, And they've been nervous about it because their focus has been on trying to bring the sale forward, close it quickly, and the pressure. And when we've discussed it, we've come up with the agreement to take it slowly, relax the person first, ask them the questions. And what they've come back and said to me at the end, it's amazing, Harry, but by slowing down, we actually went faster. And people become so much more comfortable and so much more relaxed and at ease that they want you to then help them go forward. And they will ask you, what is the solution that you think is going to work? Which that's ideal, where if we started to drill in hard on them at the start, they would pull the shutters down and we don't get anywhere. But great response, Wayne. Your run through was spot on. Fantastic.
Look, and you're right though. If you ask the right questions and you go through that sequence, those diagnosis questions that we teach, at the end, you'll even get people who will turn to you and say, "Gee, what do you think I should do then?" Now they're giving you permission to make your presentation, and then you shift gears. Look, thank you very much for giving me all that information. Now I have a clear understanding of what it is that your situation and your needs as I see them. Would you mind if I now make some recommendations? And people will say, sure, hey, what do you think I should do? Now you're seen as an advisor, not a salesperson, you're now an advisor. The second question that Andy has is a good one. He says, no doubt many factors have entered into your success in selling, but what would you say is the one most critical factor, skill or discipline, that has had the biggest impact on your sales success, and how would you encourage others to emulate this? So I'm going to throw that one to you, Harry. I've been in sales now since I was 17 years of age. Some of you may know my story. I skipped university. I decided that I come from a working class family, a lot of love in my family, not a lot of money. I was motivated. I wanted something a little bit more, and I looked at going through university. I could have, but I thought, no, it is too long. I'll be middle-aged by the time I'm enjoying the good life. So I got in sales at 17 years of age. I was so keen. And I'll come back to what my response to that is. What do you think are the major factors that have helped you to be so successful in sales? And let's face it, you've sold mostly at the high end in the computer industry, IT industry. You've been involved in sales coaching for some 30 plus years now.
That's right, yeah, yes, Wayne. Look, I'd probably say there are almost three things. The most critical aspect, though, is to have the right attitude. It's essential to have a positive mental attitude about going in. There are so many belief things and so many skills and techniques that can help you have that positive mental attitude, but you have to believe in yourself and believe in what it is that you're doing. Now, the second most critical factor of this, and this is something which I sort of put it as being almost more critical than having a positive mental attitude, but you have to have it to make this work, is to take action. You have to be prepared to have a go. If you hang back and wait, you will forever be hanging back and waiting, and everybody around you will succeed and win. But it's a positive mental attitude and having a take action approach to it. And that when you have that take action approach, you will see the little steps. You may not succeed on every opportunity you do, but you will fine tune your approach as you get better and better and better at it. And that's part of the growth thing. That's part of the skills and the techniques that we teach you that will help you really, really succeed. Now, there was a third one, which was around some of the bits that you were saying. Yeah, we'll come back to me a little bit later, anyhow. But they are the two major parts.
I agree with you. Look, we teach, and I absolutely 100% believe that attitude is 80% of our success in life. The fact of the matter is, when I was a kid and first in sales, I had very little skills, but gee, I had a great attitude. In fact, I had a killer attitude. I just didn't believe that you couldn't do something. I still today believe there's nothing, almost nothing, that is not possible if, in fact, you decide you absolutely want to do it. So having a positive mental attitude, having a positive expectation for the sort of outcome that you're looking for is so important. And yet, being prepared to take some action. Now, I've had another case of this, sadly, of the last few days, with somebody who absolutely needs to improve their selling situation. They're involved in a business that's not going so well, and it is obvious what they should do. They lack the skills, and that's the other critical factor that I would say that's affected my success in sales, is developing the skills on purpose, as I was saying before. And they know what they should do. We gave them the opportunity to develop the skills, and they didn't get started. They just didn't get started on the program. And when I spoke to them just recently about why they hadn't gotten started, they're still sort of thinking about what they should do. Well, sadly, if you don't have an attitude that drives you forward, you're not going to succeed. So certainly taking massive action, having the right attitude, staying motivated. I think also making your own luck. Now, making your own luck for me is all about prospecting. It's about not waiting for the phone to ring. It's being proactive. It's getting on the phone, making appointments, going and seeing people. And again, the good thing about prospecting is it's a skill. And all skills can be developed. I remember in the early days of my prospecting, I used to fill in daily reports. And I used to write in these daily reports, not interested, not interested, not interested. I was working for the NCR Corporation, National Cash Register, selling cash registers. And I was literally going door to door to retailers. And I sat down with my sales manager one afternoon, and he said, I've been looking through your reports, and there seems to be a lot of not interested, not interested, not interested. Now, I got to tell you, I was told I had to make 25 calls a day if I wanted to be successful in sales. And I was so bad at prospecting, I could make 25 calls and be rejected by 25 people before morning tea. Making 100 calls a day was really easy for me. And he said, there seems to be a lot of people out there not interested. And I said, well, yeah, they're not interested. He said, has it ever occurred to you that what you're saying is not interesting? That had not occurred to me at that stage, and he then enlightened me and gave me a much better approach. It's the words that you say when you get on the telephone that will make the difference, and we teach a particular scripted method for getting on the telephone that gives you a predictable outcome. And as you know, Harry, that skill that we teach gets roughly a 50% conversion ratio, which is kind of an impressive situation. And of course, a lot of people hate prospecting, and they don't do prospecting, but it is still one of the keys to successful sales today. Absolutely. I'll just move on to another question. I'm just conscious of our time. We're running out of time here. I have a question from a sales manager. Just trying to find it here somewhere. Yeah, from Danny Natoli. Danny is from Colo Solar in Bendigo in Victoria. Danny says, Wayne, in your experience, what percentage of salespeople with a poor attitude to doing the basics right can be changed quickly if performance standards are clearly communicated and documented? So what percentage of salespeople with a poor attitude to doing the basics right, he means, can be changed quickly if performance standards are clearly communicated and documented? What do you think about that one, Harry? Because we work a lot with sales managers, and it's all about getting better sales results from their people.
That's exactly right. You've got two really interesting aspects of this one, Wayne. You've got the attitude of the salesperson there, and it's absolutely essential from a sales management perspective that the sales manager understands the type of salesperson they are. Is there going to be the capacity to change the attitude of the person? But then the other thing is, has the sales manager established the criteria at the start of how they are going to measure performance and attitude and acceptance for what's going to be okay in the business? Now, if you set up the standards from a sales management perspective, it is essential that you inspect what you expect. Otherwise, you lose respect. So, the percentage of salespeople with a poor attitude to doing the basics right, you really need to reference against you. Do you do the basics right or not? Because your sales team is generally a reflection of you as the sales manager. So you've got to set the ground rules. You've got to measure your performance against the ground rules. If the team you've got are not seeing the ground rules, you've got to look at skills training, re-education, attitude alignment type processes, which is a combination of what we teach in the sales training, obviously, but it's also a realignment based on you thinking about the sales management process yourself. You absolutely must understand what you want the people to do. You have to become a coach and a mentor to assist them to get there. And you've got to put the hard stuff in place. If you don't set the rules of what you expect from people and you measure and manage them against it, you cannot drive, challenge, manage, and it's not chastise. How do you work with the ones that are not performing? You've got to have a process in place to realign the thinking of those that are not performing, or you have to assist them to find a career path that is more suitable to the way they think today. And you can read whatever you like into that. I'm saying nicely that some people may not necessarily be suited for the role that they are in, and it's fair to you and fair to them to help them recognize that. But there is a massive opportunity to help realign the thinking of people who may not know what is out there and what is expected and how they can achieve better results. And we had experience at heaps and heaps from people when the sales team haven't known how to go about changing their scores, how to go about realigning their performance, and they become frustrated and they become less adaptive to want to change because they're not being assisted into being the best they can be. Does that make sense, Wayne?
Look, it does, and I think it comes down to choosing the right people in the first place. The fact of the matter is, sales managers end up with the team they deserve, and a sales team will always be a reflection of the sales manager. So setting your criteria initially for your recruiting process is important. Also, being a good sales manager to start off with is important, because good sales managers will attract good people. Poor sales managers can only attract poor people, because a good salesperson will not work for a turkey salesman. Excuse me, I don't mean to be impolite, but that's the fact of the matter, and that's what we see so frequently. And if we as a sales manager recruit somebody who has a poor attitude, well, again, we've messed up our recruiting process. We should be basing our recruiting decisions on attitude much more than anything. And we teach this so frequently in our 12-month sales manager mentoring program, that you look for good people, you look for eagles out there who have a great attitude and are coachable. Because if somebody doesn't have a great attitude, they're not coachable. We saw this again just recently, Harry, with one of our clients, where there's a salesperson that falls into a category that we would best call the hotshot prima donna, where that person is doing very, very well, but their attitude such is that it'll prevent them from being any better than they are at the present time. And that does frustrate their manager, because imagine how good that salesperson would be if they had a good attitude, an attitude of, I still can learn, I still can grow. They're already doing well, but they're very disruptive on their team. And again, that's another question to address. But it does come down to, we get the team that we deserve, we get the team that we recruit. And yes, if we set our performance standards clearly and we document them and we get people to sign off on these performance standards when they come on board, then we have that disciplining tool to go back to the signed agreements that said, now, when you joined, you said this is what you were going to do. You're going to make a certain number of calls per day, a certain number of first meetings, certain number of presentations per week, and you're not doing these. Do you need some help from me to upskill you to in fact fulfill these performance standards? So keeping people on track. But yeah, once you get the performance standards in place, it is a matter of then asking people to come up to those performance standards, and if they consistently cannot come up to those performance standards, you need to provide them with training. And if after you've provided training and they still continue not to come up to those performance standards, then it's an attitude situation and we need to take some action. And very often the action we need to take is to give them a wonderful opportunity to go somewhere else, because frankly they're taking up space on your team that could be occupied by somebody who has a much better attitude, who takes less energy out of you to look after, and is getting a much better result for you and a much better return on investment of the time you put in, as well as the money that your company is investing in this person. Just conscious of time, I'm looking here, we have a question here which came to us the last time we didn't have a chance to handle, and we did promise we would handle it this time. It comes from Julian Marta of SSS in Brisbane, and you were in Brisbane a little while back, and we had quite a few people from SSS Australia along to our Sales Achievers breakfast back then, and I think Julian was in that group. Julian says, how do you combat when you have when you're putting in a quote for a surgery setup, that's their business, they're in the medical area, do all the work, measure, explain equipment, tell them the equipment that would be best for their type of surgery, then they come back to you because they've sent it to another company and it's cheaper. He'll send me a copy of the quote to look at, and it's obviously not exactly getting apples for apples, but they think it is. They also don't realize the other company does not come and set it up for them, advise them of the equipment uses and training of the equipment. I have 22 years experience, but sometimes it's just about the price. They don't realize the backup and training that they and their staff need. So a long, lengthy question there, but Harry, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Wayne, what we're talking about here is getting back to changing how you sell right at the start. It's by the diagnosis questions. and recognizing what is going to be important to the client. Now, there's some fantastic information in that note that Gillian understands the competitive process that they're in. In the process right at the start, as being the doctor of sales, it's absolutely essential that the questions and the process that we talk about being the disturbing process, where we highlight the issues that may crop up if their process isn't necessarily managed in the most effective way it should be, and what the impact on them and their business will be if they don't handle it smart is going to be. Because there's no point in having a quote that's cheaper, and both you and I see this a lot when people say, but that's ridiculous, all they're doing is pricing this, and they'll come back and say, oh, you've got to add in the support, you've got to add in the maintenance. If we're dealing with some of the building clients we talk with, we haven't included the cost of the council approvals, and we haven't included the cost of the soil checks and that. Where if you raise that, discuss those issues and challenges at the start, explain how your price is a one-off price that gives them the value, the support, and that you will be there in the future. The same as what we spoke about a little while ago. Sell the value of what you provide longer term as well as what you're doing in the initial process. Because if you make your prospect aware of some of the issues that the competitor will hide, you are going to be seen in a brilliant light. I can remember back in the sales days when I'd gone through the competitive process of what my competitors would do. I would set up what's likely to happen when the other competitor came in, and I would suggest to them some questions that they should ask. And I would get a phone call the day after the competitors come in and going, Harry, you must have been in on these calls. That's unbelievable. I asked the questions that you asked. They had no way of answering them. And it's just amazing that sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And when you talk to them and you discuss professionally what the business is you do and what the impacts are that you see, you will become a friend in their business. I hope that covers that.
No, it certainly does. And look, it is all about, again, being truly consultative in your approach, asking the right questions. And again, we teach this question asking process. And part of it is asking disturbing questions. So when you're in that kind of situation, asking questions that get the customer, get the prospect disturbed about the possibility of making a mistake in selecting their supplier. And we assist many of our clients to in fact do this, and it makes a major difference. So asking them disturbing questions about, well, when was the last time they purchased something like this? What was their experience then? And getting deep into the question asking process about the things that could possibly go wrong. Now, in the few minutes we have here, we can't explain this in a whole lot of detail, but those of you viewing, if you'd like to have more information on that, please zap us off an email. Let us know that that you have the question. We'll provide you with some more detailed information on this. But you can certainly ask disturbing questions that get the client thinking about, wow, you know, there's a lot to this that I haven't even thought about. Gee, I might make a mistake. And then very often, if you've done this well, at the end they'll turn to you and they'll say, well, what do you think I should do? Now you know you've built a level of trust that they're willing to hear your recommendation. Now, I just recorded a Top Gun video tip yesterday, Harry, and part of that included the thought about never, never, ever knocking your competitors, but absolutely what I call sowing the seeds of discontent. In other words, doing just as you suggested, suggesting some questions, and you do it in such a way that your words are along the line of, well, I'm really not sure what any other company might do, but anyone else that you're speaking to, you might just ask them, what do they do about the servicing aspect of this? What do they do about the training aspect of this? You might just ask them some of their, the setup. You might just ask them for names and contact details for some of the people who are exactly in businesses like you that they have provided equipment to, and you may care to call them and just speak to them directly, because I don't know much about this, but like I hear all sorts of things, but you might be advised to speak to some of their clients. By the way, let me give you a list of our clients, our telephone numbers, our contact details, so you can phone our clients, and then you be the judge. Now those words are important. You be the judge. So yeah, you sow the seeds of discontent, you set them up, and as you said before, Harry, you give them some objections they can take away and fire at the competitors, and sometimes it can make the world of difference. But again, it does come down to taking a truly consultative approach, building trust, building rapport, asking the questions, and positioning yourself in your clients' minds as a true problem solver, and eventually Generation 5, which is what we call the friend in the business. Harry, I think we've reached the end of the time here. We've run a little bit over time. We've gotten through most of the questions, well, not really, about 50% of the questions we had here. At least we got through the ones that were hanging over from last time. We're tight on time here because many people invite us to attend their sales meetings, and they allocate roughly 30 minutes to this Q&A session. We're going to be doing another one in around about 2 weeks' time. Well, I shouldn't say around about, precisely 2 weeks' time. 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I don't have the date in front of me, Harry, but that is in October, 2 weeks from today, Australian Standard Time, 8 a.m. 13th, is it, or 3rd, somewhere there? Anyway, we'll get some notice out to you.
It's going to be the 13th.
The 3rd, indeed. So
no,
the next one's coming up. 13th, beg your pardon, 13th. So that is coming up. If you'd like to invite us to be a part of your sales meeting, I realise that for some of you, you don't view this live, you view the recording afterwards with your group. Please feel free to forward along this link to other people who weren't able to join us live, or other people who perhaps aren't even aware of what it is that we do. We're happy to spread this information, provide this Q&A information, and in the hope that it will help people to improve their selling, to get a better result, and enjoy their sales career more. So again, Harry, I thank you for spending the time with us this morning to share your more than 30 years of knowledge in sales, sales management, and sales coaching. And as I so frequently say at the end of these, have a great day, make it a great day. It will be absolutely the day that you make it. So thank you so much from me, and goodbye from Harry as well.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye for now.
Okay, have a great day. Bye.